Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to do a range of basic macrame knots. And the first one I'm going to start off with showing you is a square knot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working with my macrame board. If you don't have one like this, just find a different way of attaching your cords and what you're working with. There's loads of different ways you can do that with clips and pins and stuff. So to show you this, first I'm going to get a piece of cord out. I'm just using some 2mm satin cord to demonstrate with you. I'm going to attach this to the top of my board in one of the notches. Bring it all the way down and attach it at the bottom as well. So it's now fastened to my board. And this is going to be my holding cord. You can also easily have two holding cords or more. This is just to demonstrate. And then I'm going to get out another piece of cord, same kind. And I'm going to fold it over so I find about the middle. This is how I often tend to start my work anyway. You feed one end underneath. And you have your cord ready like this. Now like I said, this is just to demonstrate you the basic technique, but there's a whole range of things you can do with this. And also different types of cord and different amounts of cord you can use. So it's not limited to this whatsoever, this is just a basic square knot. So what you do is you have your holding cord coming down the middle, and then you have your working cords coming out on the sides, one on each side. And what you do is you grab your working cord from one side first. It doesn't matter which one you start with, because it will be the same as long as you just keep going the same way. And you bring that over, it's coming out underneath your holding cord at the top, bring it over so it forms a loop, and then above your holding cord down here. So that's your first one. You now grab the cord from the other side, grab it, bring it over your holding cord from the other side, so it goes above that, and then you want to grab it and then feed it underneath, basically the place where your two cords cross, where the first holding cord where the first working cord crosses your holding cord. And then you want to pull it up through the loop that you made with your first working cord. Like so. And then I spread it out and try and show you. It kind of looks something like this. So you have your first working cord forming a loop on here, and that's going above your holding cord and then down through the loop on the other side. And this working cord is forming this loop going below the other working cord and your holding cord and coming up through the loop. So it's almost a bit like a pretzel shape, like this. And then all you do is pull them tight, like so, and that now forms the first half of your square knot. So you now need to repeat this step, do exactly the same, except start with the opposite side that you just did. So I started with my left side before, so I now want to grab the cord on my right side. Again, I bring it over my holding cord to make this loop. And some people like to kind of say that this is like a D or a P or something, depending on what side you have the loop on, to recognize it more. That's completely up to you how you like to remember it. And then grab the working cord from the other side, bring it over the working cord coming from the previous side, and then feed your end, lift up your holding cord and feed your end underneath both cords that you have crossing here, and then pull it up through the loop that you created before. Like so, and you now have that kind of pretzel shape again. And you then just pull that tight. And there you have a full square knot. I'm going to show you again a little bit closer. I tend to always start with my left side for some reason. That's just what comes natural to me. You might find out that you tend to start with your right side. That's completely fine, as long as you then make sure to go on the other side afterwards to finish off your knot. So you bring, in my case, the left side cord over, make the loop and bring it over your holding cord, and then you bring the other one over that and then feed it underneath both and pull it up through the loop and get your pretzel shape, and then pull it tight. Because I then started with my left cord, I'm going to then move on to my right cord to start with now, because you need to finish off the square knot. So you lay that over, form the loop, bring the other one down above that holding cord, and then feed it underneath both and pull up through the loop, and you have your pretzel shape. And then you pull that tight, and now here you have two square knots laying right underneath each other. And then if you're doing something like a shambhala bracelet, you can just keep going with this, making your square knots, but also you can easily incorporate it into other designs, like so. There you have 3. And if you ever want to like count how many you've done, an easy way to recognize this is by, you can kind of tell from the top, on the sides you kind of have these loops coming up. Basically one loop, if you just count on one side, one loop is one full square knot. So I could count, I have 1, 2, 3 loops, so I've done 3 square knots. So if you lose count but you need to know how many you've done, that's one way to then keep track of it. So that's how you do a basic square knot. The next knot I'm going to show you how to do is a spiral knot. It's quite similar to the square knot, but just a little variation. So again, I've attached my holding cord to my board, and I've got my working cord. Again, I folded it in half to find about the middle. Feed the end underneath. And then you have both ends coming out to each their own side. Now what you need to do is start off your spiral knot. And again, it doesn't matter what side you start with. The side you start with really is going to actually depend what way your spiral is going to go. Again, I'm just going to start with the left side. So you start off the exact same way that you did with your square knot. You take one side, create your loop, and put it over your holding cord, like so. And you take the cord from the other side, bring it over the first holding cord, the first working cord, and then bring your end underneath both and pull up through your first loop. So again, like before, you end up with this pretzel shape. And then pull that tight. So you might recognize this is exactly the same thing that we did with the square knot. The only difference is now, instead of then going to the other side and finishing off the square knot like we did before, we simply continue with the same side. Every time we do a knot, we do it from the same side. So I take, again, my left cord, make the loop, bring the other one over and feed it underneath both, and pull it up through the loop. And pull it tight. Now repeat, make the loop with the same knot to start with, same cord to start with. Bring the other one through and pull tight. So I'm going to show you again a bit closer. Keep starting with the same side, make the loop, bring the other one over underneath both and up through the loop, and pull it tight. And you just keep going with this to make the spiral knot. And what you'll find is you can already see the spiral starting to form. And usually what happens is eventually, after making a few knots, your cords will kind of twist on you, so you feel like you're going to be pulling them. So what you'll have to do is just bring them around to basically get a flat surface to work on again. But then you just keep going. The exact same thing the whole way, for as long as you want your spiral to be. And obviously I start with my left side and my spiral is going this way. If you want your spiral to go the other way, you just start on the other side and keep going with that way. So you just keep going like this until you reach the length you want your spiral to be. Let's hopefully you'll be able to tell. You have a nice spiral here now. So that's how you do the spiral knot. The next knot I'm going to show you how to do is the Larks head knot. Now this knot is often used to start out a project or to add in new cord or anything like that really. And it's quite useful one to know. So I've already put up my holding cord. This is just to demonstrate for you. It can be used in many different situations and designs. So what I've done is my working cord, I folded it over. So about the middle I have here, there's a loop. And then what you do is you keep hold of that loop, and then on my holding cord, I come from above and I feed that loop underneath my holding cord so it lays like this. And then what you do is grab hold of that loop and put your fingers through it, and then around your holding cord, then grab the ends of your working cord and pull them all through. And then you have something that looks like this. And then all you do is pull it tight, like so. And this working cord is now attached to your holding cord, and that's what's called a Larks head knot. So I'm just going to show you one more time up close. You have this loop in your working cord, about the middle of the cord usually. You feed that, keep hold of that loop, feed it underneath your holding cord, like so. Grab that loop with your fingers and put your fingers through it, and then you grab the ends of your cord, both ends, so you have it looping around your holding cord, and then you pull them through and you end up with something that looks about like this. And then you just pull it tight, and that's now fastened to your holding cord, and that's a Larks head knot. The next knot is a reverse Larks head knot, and basically it's the same thing that you just done, you're just going from a different angle. And honestly, this is the one I actually prefer to use most of the time, and I'll show you why. So again, I've got my holding cord ready. I grab my working cord, find about the middle, create the loop, and instead of coming from above and feeding the loop underneath, I go from below and feed the loop underneath from below and up, still underneath your holding cord. And you grab that loop like you did before, put your fingers through it, and then grab the ends of your cord and pull them all the way through. And then you end up with this. It basically looks the same as before, except you have the loop running underneath these two cords, whereas before it was above. And you pull it tight, like so. And that's how it looks. So I'll show you one more time up close. You grab your working cord, make your loop, feed it underneath your holding cord from beneath, push it through, and and then grab hold of the actual loop, put your fingers through, and then pull your ends all the way through, and then tighten it. And the reason that I prefer this knot to use the reverse lark's head knot over the normal lark's head knot most of the time is because, like I said from before, just flip it around and show you. This is what the reverse lark's head knot would be. You have the loop coming above. It's quite visible. It's just personal preference. I just prefer this because I think it looks a lot more, it blends in a lot better in my opinion. But that all depends on the project. But that's how to do the reverse lark's head knot. The next knot that I'm going to show you is called a half hitch. Now for this you need 2 cords that are already attached to whatever you're working on. I'm just going to show you from this. So I have 2 cords coming out. One is going to be a holding cord and one is going to be a working cord. So what you do is you grab hold of one with one hand, and then you take the other one. So the one you're holding in your hand is your holding cord, and the other one is going to be your working cord. That's the one you're going to use to form the knots around this one. So what I usually do is I put it around my finger onto the other side of the holding cord, and then pull the end through the loop. So I lay it down, the holding cord is coming straight down, and you have the working cord looping around, kind of forming a 6 around your holding cord. First going above it, then below it, and then out through the loop. And then you pull that tight, and that's a half hitch. And then you can switch over, you can do it on the other side. So that now becomes your holding cord. This is your working cord. Put it around your finger and pull it through the loop. And tighten it. So this you can really, you just need 2 cords to do a half hitch. And you can do it in any way. But this is alternating. This in itself can be a quite nice effect. You keep going like this. You could also use 2 different colours. Like so. So I'm just going to show you again up close. One is going to be a holding cord and the other one your working cord. You loop it around your finger and then pull it back through the loop. So you get your 6 forming around your holding cord, and then all you do is tighten it. And this is probably one of the most, if not the most used knot in macrame, and especially micro macrame. This is a very used knot because you can pretty much do anything with this. So that's how you do that one. The next knot that I'm going to show you is called the double half hitch. So it's basically like we just did, but you make 2 every time you make a knot instead of just 1. And again, the same principle. You need 2 cords. One is your holding cord, one is your working cord. And you do exactly the same thing. Hold your holding cord with one hand. The other one you loop around your finger and pull it through the loop. So again you end up with your 6. And just pull it tight, and then to make the double half hitch you just make another one. I'm going to show you again a bit up close. So I'm going to switch them around this time, it doesn't matter, it's just for demonstration. One is your holding cord, the other one is your working cord. You grab hold of your holding cord, take your working cord around your finger and pull it through the loop. And tighten it. And one more time, take your double half hitch, around your finger through the loop, so you get your 6. This is a reverse 6, and just tighten it. So you're making 2 half hitches to make a double half hitch, which then counts kind of as 1 knot. And this is, like I said before, very common knot, and very much used in especially micro macrame. And the thing with this, it's going to be a bit hard for me to show you here, but what happens with this is you can pretty much do anything. And a little tip is when you're doing half hitches, you can get your row of knots, because that's basically what you do a lot of the times. You create rows of knots. You can get that row to go in pretty much any direction you want it to go. The way you determine that is what direction you hold your holding cord in. So if you pull it up, your row will start to go up. If you pull it down, it will start to go down. So it's very handy like that. You can basically get it to do whatever you want it to do. And also, if you keep going, making these half hitches, doing it the same way, it's kind of similar to before with the spiral knot. But actually a spiral starts to form here. Just a little bit of a different type of spiral, but still a spiral. I'll grab it back around. If you want to just keep going doing this, you make a different type of spiral. As you can see, your knots are starting to spiral around. So that's just another effect you can get from it. Now the last knot that I'm going to show you how to do is a bit of a variation between some of the ones we've already done. And it's called the reverse double half hitch. Again, you have your two cords. One is going to be holding cord and one is your working cord. So you keep hold of one of them, doesn't matter which one, that all depends on the design you're going for. You do the same thing, you take your working cord around your finger and pull it through the loop, like so. But then now, instead of continuing that same way, what you need to do is reverse it. Because remember from before, when we just kept doing it the same way, you got a spiral. What you actually want this to do is you want it to end up being flat. So to do that, you need to do the opposite. So this time, we went like this. So if we lay it out, we basically go over the holding cord and then back underneath. That's how we started. So now we need to do the opposite. Now we need to take the working cord underneath the holding cord and then pull it back around and through the loop. So you still get your 6, but it wraps around in the opposite way. And then you pull that tight and you get what looks like this. So I'm going to show you a few more times to show you the effect you get. So basically you have your holding cord like the whole time. In this case you're not switching around between holding cord and working cord. You put your working cord above it, over it, and then back around itself and pull it through the loop. So you get your 6. And because you started going over that one, now you need to take your working cord underneath your holding cord and then pull the end back through the loop. So that's why it's called a reverse double half hitch. And what you kind of end up with, if I can try and show you, around, over and around and pull through, then under and around and pull through. If you can see this knot, this is very similar. It's basically the same when we did the Larks head knot. So you can also call it kind of a sideways Larks head knot. It just depends how you like to look at it really. So you pull it tight, like so, over, around, through the loop, pull it tight, under, around and through the loop, and pull it tight, over, around, through the loop, and under, around and through the loop. And then you end up with something that looks like this. So basically, like I said, a row of knots, and like I said, they're all flat, they're not spiraling like they did before, because you're doing them reverse. It basically works a bit like you're doing the square knot and the spiral knot. It's the same principle. So that's how you do a range of basic macrame knots, and from these knots you'll pretty much be able to do anything. And there's loads of different variations, and it all depends on your designs that you want to do as well. So I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today's video is going to be about basic macrame knots and how to take those knots to the next step by putting them together in different ways to achieve completely different results, but just by using the same basic knots. So if you want to learn a bit more about basic macrame, then keep watching. So then what I'm going to be doing is taking you through one knot at a time and then show you how to make that knot, the different variations you can make of the same knot, and then also how to put some of your knots together. And the first knot that we're going to start out with is the Larks head knot. And this knot is most often used for when you're starting out a project or when you want to add new cord into a project that you're already working on. So what I already have here is a piece of cord attached to my board, and that's the one I'm just going to be making my knots onto. So to make the knot, I'm just going to get on my piece of cord that I'm going to demonstrate with, and this is just one length. And then what we need to do for the Larks head knot is fold this so you have a bit of a loop here, and we're going to use that loop to create the Larks head knot. So I'm going to take that and put it underneath the holding cord that's already on my board, and then we have that loop up here. We're going to come back around with that, put your fingers through the loop, grab your end tails there and pull them through, and then you have this that look a bit like a pretzel shape, and this is basically your Larks head knot when we tighten it up. So you just want to tighten it, and then you have a cord here attached that you can then start working with. So this is basically the Larks head knot, and as you can see you kind of have two loops on the side and then your two ends of your cord coming through the middle of those loops. So this is one way that your knot can look, where we took the loop of the cord there and went underneath from the bottom of that holding cord and then back over the top. This is personally my favourite one because it looks a bit the most neutral basically, but there's also another way that you can do it to get a different look, and that is simply by taking your cord again and putting your loop in there, so just folding it over, and then instead of coming from the bottom we're going to go down from the top, lift up the holding cord and then bring it underneath. So we have it like this, and then the same principle, we take the loop back around towards the tails over that holding cord and put the fingers through, and then pull the tails through that loop, and then we bring the cords down here, and then when we tighten it you'll be able to see that this knot actually looks a bit different. So instead of having your two tails coming out between the two loops on the cord and it being quite neutral, what you'll be able to see here is that we kind of have a loop going across the two tails that we have, and that's how that looks. So it's basically this exact same knot, it just looks a little bit different. And if you actually flip this over, so if you just take your tails towards the top, you'll be able to see that that looks like the first one I showed you. So it's the exact same knot, it just really depends on personal preference which look you like to have for your piece. Now I personally tend to use the first one I showed you the most, just because it looks the nicest I think, and it's a bit more neutral than this one. But both variations have the exact same purpose. So what I'm just going to do is redo the first knot again, so we can then move on to the next step. So I make my loop, bring it from below the cord and then underneath, take it back around and then pull your tails through, and then you get your pretzel shape, and then when you tighten it you have your Larks head knot. So another variation of this is the Larks head knot with half hitches. So what we have here is that the basic Larks head knot, and we're going to be using this, then split up your ends there, your tails. So what we're going to be doing with this is add a half hitch on each side of this. So what you'll be able to see is that your tails that are coming from the knot there are naturally coming out towards each their own side. So you just want to stick with that side that they're coming out to and then work with one at a time. So I'm just going to take my left one first. So we just work with this length of cord now, And then what I'm going to do is bring it back over the top of my holding cord like this, and then take it back underneath and then up through the loop. So it looks like this. So we're coming from the knot, going over your cord, back underneath the holding cord and up through the loop. Remember to come up through the loop because that's what creates the knot. And then tighten that, and that's going to sit on the one side of your knot there. And then we need to do the same with the other one here. So the one on the right side, bring it over on the right side of your knot there, over that holding cord, back underneath it, and then up through the loop. So the same thing just on the other side. And then when we tighten that, we have a half hitch on each side of a knot there. So this basically has the same purpose and effect as the Larks head knot itself. The only difference is we added a few more knots to it, so the knot itself kind of takes up a bit more space. And that is actually the reason why sometimes you want to use this knot over the normal Larks head knot. So this was then the Larks head knot that I've just gone through. Now we need to move on to the next knot. So the next knot that I'm going to go through is the square knot. So to do that, again I'm going to need my piece of cord here, and now before we can make the actual square knot, I just need to attach my cords to that holding cord so we get them into position. And I'm going to do that by using the knots that we just learned. So the Larks head knot. So I'm going to take it from the bottom, pull my ends through, and then tighten that. Now this one cord is not going to be quite enough, so I need to attach another one. And then I can also show you what it looks like in different colours. So the same way, Larks head knot from the bottom and pull the ends through. And then I tighten that, and I'm just going to place that right next to the other one. So we have the two cords just like this, ready for the square knot. So now that I have both of my cords attached, we've now ended up with 4 pieces of cord that we can work with. So 4 lengths here, 2 of each colour. Now you don't have to have this. These 2 in the middle are going to be my holding cords. We're going to make the knots around. You can also easily do that with 1 or even more as well. This is just to demonstrate with. But then we're going to use the 2 outer ones here to actually make the knot. So again, you can do this in a couple of different ways, but where you're going to actually end up with the same result. So it doesn't matter how you do it, but I'm just going to show you both ways here. So I'm going to take my left one first, and I'm going to bring that over my holding cords there, so you get a bit that looks like a 4. And then I'm going to take the other one here down over that one on the side, and then we need to go underneath everything in the middle. So underneath the one you just put over, and then your holding cords as well. Push it up and then come out through the first loop that you made on this side, and then you end up with something like this. And then we pull that tight just like that, and then that's 1/2 of the square knot. So we need to finish it off. So I'm going to start from the other side now. So in this case I'm using 2 different colours. You can tell I'm always starting with the same colour. So I'm going to take from the right side, go over, and then the left side, over that one, and underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop. So you end up with this again, and then pull that tight, and then that is your 1 full square knot. So this is the one way that you can do it, and then I'm just going to show you the other way as well. So I'm now back to having my cord set up like this, just with the 2 Larks head knots. So we have our 4 lengths of cord, 2 working ones, and then the 2 holding cords again. So to make the other variation of the square knot, all we do is simply start with the other side. So in this case I'm taking my right side, so the cord from the right side over the 2 holding cords in the middle, and then from the left one I bring that down over that, and then underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop. So as you can see here, we end up with the same thing. The cords are just kind of looping around in a different way, but then we tighten it. And then again, remember we're starting with the same colour every time, just because I'm using 2 different colours now. So just start with the opposite one when you make the other half of your square knot. So my left one, and then take the right one over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop. And then you tighten that, and you have your 1 full square knot. So in most cases it doesn't matter which side you start with, unless the pattern that you're doing calls for a specific side that you need to start from, but otherwise you can start from whichever side that comes natural to you. So because I naturally tend to start from my left side, I'm just going to go back to make a square knot starting from that side, and then I'll show you the next one. So I've now done my first knot again, just like I showed you the first time. So what I'm going to do now is make a few more. So I take my left one over the holding cord, my right one goes over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop. And tighten that, and that's the first half of your square knot. And then the opposite side, and then tighten that, and then that's another full square knot. So now I have two. So we can keep going like this, and then we'll get knots underneath each other, and then what that will form is something called a sennet. So basically what that means is you have a row of knots right next to each other, or underneath each other in this case. So there I have three. So you can add however many you want to this, and this specific with the square knot you'll often find in macrame bracelets, and even the shambhala bracelets as well. That's what's commonly used for that. But then you get in your row of knots there, we can also call it a chain of knots, and that's what makes up your sennet. So now I want to show you what you can also do with this, and that's a square knot button or a berry knot. So what we need to do is make some more square knots. So again, I start out by making the first one here, the first half of it, but then what we need to do, instead of pulling it completely tight, we need to leave a bit of a gap there. So you have two little spaces, one on each side of your holding cords. What you can also do is put some pins in there, because the pins, if you put one on each side of the holding cords, they will act like a stopper, so your cord here, your knot, will only be able to tighten so far. But I'm going to leave it at that, so we have those gaps, and then make the other half of the square knot the exact same way, because that other half of the square knot will now tighten up the first half as well. So tighten that, making sure that those gaps are still there, and then what we just need to do is make a few more. Now you need to make a minimum of about 3, I would say, and then you can always do a few more. It also depends what materials that you're using, and obviously how big of the knot that you want to be. So just make a few here, but like I said, I'm going to do a minimum of 3. I'm probably going to do 4, just so you can see the effect. So keep making your sennet of square knots here. So third one, I'm going to do one more. And now you can also really start to see the effect of using the two different colours there as well. One colour tends to stay on the outside, and then the other colour will run through the middle of your knots there. So that's 4 full square knots now. So then what I'm going to do is release my 2 holding cords here, so these 2 that we're making our knots on, and then just take one at a time. Now again, you'll see one comes naturally to one side, so just take the one that's to your left side, and then we need to put the end of this through the loop that we've left on that left side of your holding cords up here. So just put that through, and then come back out the other side, like that. And then the other side, we need to put that holding cord through that gap that we left, and just grab it and pull it through. And then what will happen when we pull these tight, this sennet of knots that we just made will kind of fold around and become a little button knot like that. And you can place your holding cords back in to keep it nice and tight. And then to lock this in place, we just need to use the working cords again to then make another square knot. So we just do that the exact same way. I start from the same side again, bring that over, take the other side over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop. And then when we tighten this, we just need to make sure that this stays below that button knot that we just made, and then when we tighten that, that's going to secure that knot nicely in place now. Finish it off with the other side, so just like this, and there, you can even take it off the board now as well, and it'll be nice and secure. So this can give a nice little feature. You basically have your sennet of square knots rolled up to create this button knot. And then you can keep going like this. You can make more of your button knots if you want to, and you can make them right underneath each other, so you get this kind of textured look to whatever you're making. Now these knots you can use for many different things. They add a bit extra decoration. So that's how you make the button knot. So the next variation of this is the alternating square knot. And then what I've done is I just added an extra length of my cord using the basic Larks head knot again. So I've now got 3 pieces of cord attached that I've then turned into 6 lengths that we're going to be working with. So what we need to do is we need to split up our cords, because as I said, we have 6 lengths here. Now you can work with more or less, this is just to demonstrate with. You can easily use quite a few more, you're just going to be building more rows. But since I have 6 here, I'm going to split them into 2 groups where there's 3 in each, and then just to begin with, focus on one group at a time. So we have these 3, and like I said when we did the square knot, we don't have to have 2 holding cords, we can just have 1. So I'm going to take the very middle one of that group of 3 there, and use that as the holding cord, and the other 2 I'm going to make my square knot with. So again, we're just using the basic square knot here like I showed you before, and like I said, I start from my left side. You can quite easily start from the other side, it doesn't matter at all, and then bring the first one over, the other one goes over that underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop, so it looks just like it did before. And then we tighten that, that's the first half, the other half, bring the other one over, and then over that underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop, and tighten, and then we have the first full square knot. So that's this first section of 3. Then I'm going to move to the other one. So we've just done the 1 square knot, and we're going to do the same with these. So again, take your middle one, use as your holding cord, and then we just do a square knot again with the 2 working cords the exact same way, and we're just doing 1 square knot on each here, because then this is the point when you've done these 2 that we then need to do the alternating one. So release your holding cords, and then we just need to look at all the cords where we have them. So as you might be able to tell, we have 2 on the outside here going to each their own side, and we have 2, they were the holding cords, and they're kind of coming straight down, and then we have the 2 in the middle here. They're kind of crossing in towards each other, towards the middle. And now in my case, these are the 2 green ones, just because I'm using 2 different colours, but obviously they can also be the same colour. But those are the ones that are now going to be the holding cord. So I take them, bring them down, and then what we're going to use as the working cords are the 2 that were the holding cords before. So that's why it's called the alternating. The holding cords and the working cords kind of keep swapping jobs. So again, I'm going to take my left one, bring my right one over, and then underneath everything in the middle and up through the loop to create the alternating square knot, and then finish it off by doing the other side of it. So just like this, and then that's your first alternating one. So to then do the next step, we release these 2 holding cords, and then we'll go back to the ones that were the holding cords before. Those are the 2 that were just the working cords. I'm going to reattach them to make it easier to work with. And then we just want to make our square knots again on the outside, so like the very first ones we did. So that means the 2 in the middle here, in my case the green ones, the ones that were just the holding cords, they now become the working cords again. And then including the very outside ones as well. So just start with one side at a time, and then do your square knot just around that 1 holding cord, and then tighten that, and the other half of it, and then tighten that as well. And then there you have the first one on the next row, and then what you'll notice is you have a little gap there, and that's kind of what we achieve by doing this alternating square knot. And then the same on the other side as well, just like the first row. We take the first one over, and then the other one to make a square knot, the basic square knot, and then tighten that up there. Do the other half of it to then kind of seal it in place, and then when you do that, you'll see that little gap or loop that you have there, now 1 on each side. So then you just want to continue like this, release your holding cords, swap them over. So now the 2 working cords that are facing in the middle there, they now become the holding cords, and then the 2 that were your holding cord right there in the previous ones, they now become your working cords. So you just keep doing this And there's also many variations that you can do with this on itself. This is quite tight what I'm doing here. I'm having the knots sit right underneath each other as far as it will go. You can also make it quite loose. It'll give a nice open weave as well. And like I said, you can also easily add more rows so you get a much wider piece. And also there's ways you can add beads into this. So this is just a basic way to do it. So you just want to keep going like this, and then this is your alternating square knot. So the next thing that we can do with our square knot is the picot knot. So again, I'm back to my 2 lengths of cord that I've attached here. So what I'm going to do is use the 2 of them again in the middle there as my holding cords, and just to demonstrate with. So what we need to do first is I'm just going to do a simple square knot again. So just the basic square knot that we've just been going through. And tighten that. Because what we are going to be doing, it's a bit like the alternating one as well. You'll find that you have your loops, and also with a button knot as well, we created them little gaps in between the square knots. That's what we're going to be doing again, but then using them for something different. So I just got a couple of square knots there now. So then to create our picot, what we need to do is another square knot. But then, like in the button knot, we need to make sure it doesn't tighten all the way up underneath the other one. We need to leave them little loops. Now how large you want the loops to be, it's completely up to you. It can be different sizes for different purposes. And again as well, you can put pins in there just to have something to leverage against. And you can also, if you want to, measure the size of those loops if you want an even look, depending on what you're doing. So I'm just going to do another one to make it nice and secure. You can also just do one square knot, that's fine. But then once we have this, what we're going to do with these loops is actually I'm going to grab my holding cords, grab onto my square knots there on the bottom, and then push it up. And then we end up with these, and these are actually your picots. So what we can do is continue making that. So you can either push one up at a time and then make some more knots, or you can just keep it down and then make a whole bunch of these where you have your gaps there, maybe also to make sure they get a bit more even. And then once you have a few gaps, you can push them all up at the same time. So this again is used for different things. It can give a bit of a fringe look as well. So I'm just making another one here just to show you. 2 stacked on top of each other. So again, grab your holding cords, push on the bottom square knot, push that up, you have your first picot, and the next one as well. So that's how you make these. So the next knot that we're going to go through is the spiral knot, or also known as the half knot. And again, I've just got 2 cords here attached with my Larks head knot that we learned at the beginning. So this is going to remind you a little bit about the square knot that we just learned, because in the square knot we took one side first, went over, and then we did the other side after, and then that completed the full square knot. In this we're going to do something similar to begin with. So again, I'm just going to start with my left side. Again, you can start with the other side, it doesn't matter at all, same principle as the square knot. Start with my left side, bring the right one over that, underneath everything in the middle, and up through the loop. So as you can see, we start in the exact same way as the square knot. I'm going to tighten that. And then in the square knot, what we'll do now is start with the other side. That's not what we're going to do here. We're just going to continue using the same side. Because that's what, with the square knot, that's how we achieved the flat look. Because this is going to turn into the spiral knot. We're going to keep using the same side over and over again. And then what you'll be able to see is that your knot is actually starting to twist. So eventually, when you've made a few, you're going to have to then just swap over your working cords there. It's going to be a bit easier to work with because it's actually twisting there. And then just keep doing the same thing. You can just start from the same side, making half of your square knot basically, and starting that with the same side every time. So just continuing like this. And that's how you then achieve that spiral knot. And again, that can be quite nice for certain things design wise. Give a completely different effect and texture than using the square knot. So So you can really start to see the twist now. And again, I have to swap them around. So that you just keep going like this, and that's how you then achieve the spiral knot. So the next knot that we're going to go through is the half hitch. And again, I've just attached 2 lengths of my cord here using the Larks head knot, and I'm just using one of each colour, just as it's going to be a little bit easier to show you. So once we start moving into the half hitch area of knots, I personally like to kind of hold the holding cord in my hand while I'm using the other hand for my working cord. You can also use a board or pin it down, that's up to you, but I just prefer holding it because there's a bit more changing and swapping around once you're using your half hitches. So what I'm going to do is just use the green one as my holding cord and the purple one as the working cord that I'm going to make the knots with. So what I'm going to do is bring the purple one, in my case the left one, over the green one, and then bring it back around and then pull the end through. And then when you look at it like this, you get a bit of a 6. So it looks like a 6 here. We're just looping around the green cord and coming through the loop. Make sure it comes through the loop. And then when you tighten that up there, it's nice and tight, and then that is basically your half hitch. And then from this, we can then move into the spiral half hitch. So again, I'm grabbing this as my holding cord. With this one, we keep using the green one in my case as the holding cord, and then the other one here is the working cord, and I keep going in the same direction. So again, it goes over the green one, back around and through the loop, so you get your 6. So that's another way to remember as well, that you need to get your 6 there, looping around. Tighten that under the other one. So that's 2 now. And then if you keep going like this, you're going to build up your knots. So around, over, back around and through the loop, and tighten. And then what you'll be able to start to see here is that you get like a spiral look to it. So a bit like the spiral knot, this is just using a half hitch, and then eventually you will have to swap them over again. But just keep going like this until basically your working cord is wanting to come toward the other side. So you just bring it back around and then continue in the same way. So over, back around and through the loop. Like this. Always going in the same direction. And then you get that nice spiral look to your knots, which can also give a really nice effect. So this is your half hitch turned into a spiral half hitch. So the next thing that we can do with this knot is the alternating half hitch. And again, I have my 2 lengths of cord here, just one of each colour, to show you a little bit easier. So I hold them in my hands just like before, because this is going to be a little bit easier because we're going to be swapping around now. So I start out the same way, do my first half hitch, so bring my left one over the right one, back around and through the loop. Now you can start with the other side, it doesn't matter, but then we tighten that up. So remember, you get your 6 there, and then that's the first one. Now for the alternating one, we need to use the other cord. So in my case, that's the green one, just the one on the right side. Do the same thing but the other way around. So over, the right one over the left one, back around and through the loop. And then on this side, you get your reverse 6. And tighten that. So that's a bit of a way to remember as well. So when you take your left one over, back around and through, you get your normal 6. Tighten that. And when you take your right one over the left one, back around and through, you get your reverse 6. And then tighten that. And then you can keep building like this, and then you get a row of alternating half hitches. And again, this can also give a really nice effect, both with the same colour as well, because you kind of get a bit of texture to it. So you'll be able to start seeing it build up there. So you can just go for however long you want. So that's your alternating half hitch. So the next knot that we're going to have a look at is the double half hitch. The one we just did was a single half hitch, so we're now going to use that and turn it into the double half hitch. So what I have here is I've added a few more cords just to show you the way that it's very commonly used, because it's basically very often used to build rows of knots underneath each other, both in macrame and also micro macrame. So what I'm going to do again is take the cord furthest to the left, and again, like every other knot that I've showed you, you can start from the other side, so you can start on the right side and bring that over, but it's whatever comes natural to you. I'm going to take my left one, you need to bring it over all the other cords, and then this is going to be your holding cord, where all the others are one by one going to be your working cords. So to make the double half hitches, we then take the very next one, so all these are coming out underneath, and then if you remember the half hitch, we go over the holding cord, back around, and then we come through the loop. So when you have it like this, it looks like your 6. And then when you tighten this, if you want a tight row underneath, if you've already got your lark's head knots there, we need to make sure that this holding cord is in the right direction. So I kind of tend to push it up a little bit, or pull it up there, so the row that you're making now becomes nice and flush underneath the previous one. And then what we just do is do another one to get a double half hitch, and then it's your 6 again. So instead of just a single half hitch, we're doing a double one. So just like that, that's your first one, and we always just do one double half hitch with each cord there. Moving on to the next one, always grab the very next one, same thing, coming underneath, around your finger, through the loop, so you get your 6. And then tighten that. Remember to pull your holding cord up a little bit, and then around your finger and back through the loop, so you get your 6. And then tighten that, so you get nice and tight rows under each other there. Move on to the next one, because that was a double half hitch. Do the same thing around your finger and through the loop, and tighten, and once more, so you're getting your 6s all the way across. So you just keep moving like this all the way to the other end. Obviously you can use as many cords as you want to. So you keep moving across here, taking one cord at a time and doing one double half hitch with each of them. And then also, as you can see, I'm going to start using a different colour now. You can get some nice patterns by using different colours into these double half hitches and making your rows like this. And by doing a double half hitch over a normal half hitch, just a single one, that second half hitch that you do, because it's basically 2 half hitches, it tightens the first one in place, so it's basically a bit more secure than just doing one half hitch. So just like this is all the way across, and then you have your full row there of knots. So then what you can do as well is you can keep building your rows, and you can keep using the same holding cord, because then what we can do is bring all the working cords back down again, and then actually come back across the other way. So building row underneath row over and over again. So you just bring it back across just like that, so all the others are coming underneath, and you're just using opposite hands now. That's why there's quite often directional changes in your double half hitches here, but you get used to that over time. And then this way, you can see, we get the reverse 6, because we're going the other way now. So this is just something you can do with it, and then build up a new row underneath here, just by going the other way. And then another way that you can build your rows here with your double half hitches is, instead of bringing the same holding cord back across to come the other way, what you can do is go back to the beginning. So I'm going to go back to my left side. Again, you can also start from the right side and keep going back to the right side, but go back to the very first one on the left side here, bring that one over, so the same way that we did right in the first row, and take the very next one coming underneath, and then start doing a new row here of double half hitches. So like this, one double half hitch with each, and then grab the very next one. Always make sure to grab the next one so they're not crossing over there, and just build up this next row. And then what you'll be able to see is that it's a little bit off from the first one, but that's because we used one of the working cords from the previous row to now make a new row by being the holding cord for that. So work our way all the way across with the double half hitches, I'm changing into my other colour here. And we just want to get all the way to the end, just like in that first row. I've reached my last one of the working cords from the previous row. So like this, a double half hitch, and then all we have left is the holding cord, from the previous row. What we just want to do is bring that underneath the current holding cord, and then just do a double half hitch with that as well. So just treat it as if it was one of the working cords, and then that finishes off that row. So as you can see, that second one is a little bit off from the first one, but then you get a bit more of an angle on that, because then you can also do this for a bit, come back the other way, so you get a zigzag pattern to it. So you can go back to the beginning again and start a new one, and it'll keep growing out this way. So the next one we're going to do is quite similar to the one I just showed you. What we're going to be doing is a diagonal double half hitch. So that just means that we'll be using the double half hitch again to make a row of knots, but instead of coming straight across like we just did, what we're going to be doing is coming down diagonally. So again, I take my very furthest to the left. You can start on the other side again, just like the other times, and then take the very next one underneath, and then start doing your double half hitches again. So you're getting your sixes in this case, and then now what we want to do, because we want a diagonal row, instead of having it come straight across underneath the other one, what you always got to remember is basically when you're doing your double half hitches here, where you hold your holding cord is where your row of knots is going to build up. So I want it to come down diagonally. That means I need to hold my holding cord in the direction I want my row to go. Move on to the next one. Around your finger and through the loop, and then building them up here at a diagonal angle in the direction that you're holding your holding cord in. So the same principle, as you can see, we're building up a row of knots with a double half hitch. We're just coming down at a different angle. So this is what you can control as well with your double half hitches, by using your holding cord to basically dictate where they go. So where your row is going to build up. So keep moving on to the next working cord. They're always coming underneath. As you can see, we're starting to see that now, the diagonal row of knots. Again, you can always use as many or as few cords as you want. This is just to demonstrate with. Almost at the end, grab the very next one and do your double half hitch. And then we reach the very last one, finish off this row, and then you can really see that diagonal angle to the row. So just like this. And then what you can do is come back the other way and basically get a zigzag pattern. So like the other row, but just to keep like the rows open in between, we have the holding cord back across all the rest, and then just start with your double half hitches again. Just changing the hands that you're using, and again using your holding cord to dictate the direction that your row is going to go in. So you can have this come down diagonally as well. So you come down like this. So that's another thing you can do. It can give some really nice effects as well. So the last knot that we're going to go through is the vertical lark's head knot, and this is a bit of a variation of the double half hitch. So what I have here is just one length of cord that I've attached with the lark's head knot that we learned at the beginning. And then what I'm going to do again is we're going to be doing half hitches. So I'm just going to hold them with my hands here. My right one is going to be my holding cord, and the left one the working cord. Again, it doesn't matter, this is just to demonstrate. So what I'm going to do is start making a half hitch like I showed you before. So I'm going to bring the left one over the right one, back, around, and through the loop. So we get a 6. And then tighten that. And then what we're going to do now is another one, but just the opposite way around. So we're going to go, just before we went over, now we're going to go under with the cord from the left, and then back around and through the loop. So we're still getting that 6, but your cord is looping around the holding cord in the opposite direction. And then when you tighten that, you get your vertical lark's head knot. And then you can keep building on this. So you can keep making vertical lark's head knot after each other. So over first, back around and under. And then under, back around and back through. So that's another one. So that's 2. We'll do another one. Over, around and through to get your 6. Tighten. And under, around and through to get your 6, but looping around the other way. And then tighten. So we now have 3, and we're building up a row of a vertical lark's head knots there. So as you can see, we're using the half hitch, and it's kind of like the double half hitch, but instead of having both of your half hitches to create the double half hitch going in the same way, we're just going over first and then under, and that creates this look. So you can see you have little loops there, kind of like when we did the original lark's head knot. That's why it's called the vertical lark's head knot. So if I try and show you why it's called that, go over, back around and through, and then instead of just tightening it completely, I'm just going to leave it down here, and then we go under, back around and through, and then we have this. So if you remember the beginning for the lark's head knot, if you don't look at this that's attached, this is what it actually looked like before we tightened that. And then if you tighten that, we have this. And then that's going to be your lark's head knot. And it's just called the vertical one because we're using one cord to build them up. And you can also do the same, you can make picots like this, but then obviously that's completely up to you. So that's how you make the vertical lark's head knot. So this was a bit of an overview of your basic macrame knots, and then taking those knots to the next step, and then putting them together in different ways to achieve different results. So I really hope that you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. In today's video I'm going to go through with you some of my favourite cords and threads, and also what I like to use them for. And here I just have a few examples of the different ones that I'm going to be talking about. And the ones that I'm going to be going through is some satin cord here, I have a Chinese knotting cord, and then I have S-lon, which is also the same as C-lon, and then this is just a nylon thread. So then let's get started having a bit of a closer look at them all. So these cords are the first ones that
Thank you.